Hello all, Stephanie Anderson here, and I am going to show you how to set up a cover to a template for one of the POD printers. I'm going to walk you through the process step by step. Now, when I design covers, I start with a base, and if I'm doing a pre-made cover that I'm going to sell on my website, when doing a pre-made, you don't really know what size the potential author who's going to buy it, what book size they're going to do, if they're going to do print. If they're doing ebook only, it doesn't really matter what size you set it up initially. But for print, if they are doing print, of course, you have to know what trim size they're going to use. Some of the most common trim sizes for the indie publishing is 6x9. That's typically best for maybe nonfiction books or books that are going to be incredibly long or that the author wants a larger typeface. 6x9 is a good size. However, for basic novels, I do not like 6x9. I prefer 5.5 by 8.5, 5.25 by 8, or what size I do mine is a 5 by 8. So it really depends on what book size you want to do. They all vary. There's really no particular size. Some people will say go to the bookstore, but what traditional publishers are going to do some off sizes, like those mass market paperback books. I think they're 4.25 by 7. And those typically do not work in the print-on-demand area, although they are available. So you could definitely go that route if that's what you're looking for. I like the 5 by 8 because it's just a good size that I can easily fit in my pocketbook without it being too big. And some of my novels are on the shorter side, between 40 and 50K. And doing 5 by 8 allows me to kind of push that page size out to around 200 pages, which I prefer. Now, if you do have a longer book, for example, I have a book that's over 100,000 words, and it is almost 400 pages in the print book. So, there's a couple of things you got to keep in mind for page sizes. Now, when I design covers, of course, it's always best to know what that trim size is, but that isn't always the case. Like I said, when you do pre-made covers. But what I typically start with is a 6x9 base with a pretty sizable spine width. This right here, you'll notice it says coverbase.psd. This is actually set to, let's look at our image size here. It is set to 13.25 by 9.25. Okay, so that includes our bleeds, our 1/4-inch bleeds, our 1/8-inch bleeds all the way around. That includes if you can do the math, it's about an inch spine. And so this is where I start. And yes, I design my front cover. A lot of times when I'm doing pre-mades, I may not even think about the back cover yet, but I still lay it out in this fashion. And if you zoom in, you'll see that all of my lines here tell me something. This is the front cover from this blue line all the way to the edge. Okay, and then this is our spine. And then this is where the back cover starts all the way to the edge. So this outside white area is where my bleed is. And this next area that's created with all these blue lines is what's called the non-printable zone, outside of the safe zone, however you want to call it. No text should fall in this area. Okay, so you need to make sure all your text fits within what's called the safe zone, which is this area right here. Okay, so what I recommend is if you do covers for others, if you're making covers for everybody, create a base file just like this as your guide. Now, if you find that you don't even want to think about the back cover or the spine at this point, or even the bleeds for that matter, just open up your document and say, here, 6x9. You know, it's really up to you. But if you think that it's honestly a lot easier to design a full cover if you've already thought about designing a full cover. And I think when I start using this type of template as my base, I kind of think about it. You know, if this person decides to do a back cover, how's my spine going to look? How is my back cover going to look? You know, am I going to be able to continue on the graphics from the front cover to the back? And then also, too, that bleed is essential. If you have full artwork that extends the whole cover and your client says, hey, I want a paperback, and then you come in and realize that some of the elements that you've designed are going to be in that area that gets cut off because you didn't think about that bleed when you were designing it, you're going to hate yourself. So I highly recommend considering that bleed when you're designing. So take that 1/8 of an inch around the outside edge, not on the inside, and think about, you know, making sure you have elements that are not relevant in that area. Okay. All right, so this is the cover base file I have. You can set it up yourself, really easy, using the guides. I actually have a calculator that I used to use for KDP or Create Space templates back in the day that would tell me, you know, everything. But I just kind of created this dummy myself as a base with I think this spine is about 1 inch. So it's a 6x9 with a 1-inch spine. And then I've got the bleed all the way around. All right. And it's best to lock this layer because you don't want to move your guides around and get screwed up. And then you'll also see I have a grid set up. I have the center line of the front cover, and then I have just a 2x3 grid. This helps me in, you know, laying out certain elements for the cover and thinking about placement as I use this grid. Same with the back cover. I just have this 2x3 grid. And then, so what we're going to do now is I have a cover. This is the Unwrap My Heart cover. You'll notice this doesn't include back text. I am one of those weirdos that likes to use Adobe InDesign for the final cover. I prefer Adobe's InDesign text controls over Photoshop. Back in the day, you really could never change justification settings in Photoshop, and doing a drop cap in Photoshop was such a pain. So I just have the habit of setting up my full covers in Adobe InDesign. But what I typically do is I'll typically do the whole entire layout minus the back cover text in Photoshop. Then I will open up the file then I will create a file in Adobe InDesign and place the back cover text. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to walk you through the process. Now, when I first designed this cover, I used my cover base, and I didn't think about what book size we were going to be printing. I don't know why. So you will notice that my image size is set up to be 6x9. Well, what did I tell you I like to use? I like to use 5.5 or 5x8. So I have to get this cover that's already beautiful and set up into a 5x8 format. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually download a template from KDP for this book. Okay, so to find what I recommend, once you find the template generator, which I'll show you in a minute, bookmark it so you can find it really quickly. I mean, it's easy to search for it. All you have to do is type in KDP cover template generator and click on the link, and you'll see that it's the paperback cover templates. And for KDP, you only need to know 3 things. Okay, now let's take a look at Ingram Sparks. And Ingram Spark redid their website, so sometimes you have to think about where you can find it. So I recommend bookmarking it as well. But if you go to the Resources tab, just click on the main Resources tab, none of these down here. So Resources, and then File Creation, and then Cover Template Generator. And so I recommend bookmarking this so you can easily find it next time. Now, this is all the information you need for Ingram Spark. A lot more, a lot more. So, depending on what printer you are going to use or your client is going to use, you're going to need to know certain information depending on what printer they're using. All right, so since this is KDP, we're going to just download the KDP template. We know that it is 5 by 8, so these are all the trim sizes that are available at KDP. So with your client, if you are doing this for someone other than you, make sure you get the right information from them. What typically happens 99 out of 100 times, if a client's cover file gets rejected by KDP, 99 out of 100 times it's because they provided you with the wrong information to set up this template. Some authors don't understand that the page count has to be exact. Some authors don't understand that changing the page color results in a slightly larger or smaller spine. So it's important to get that information correct. Now, as a designer who does both covers and interiors, if KDP rejects it, it was either the client input something wrong, which is often the case, or I can make mistakes and I might have screwed it up. But just know that a lot of people struggle with this, but if you have the right information and your client is entering the right information, you should never have any problems. Most of the time that isn't the case. All right, so now choose your template. We know my book is 5 by 8. Page count. I'm going to open up the interior final file, and up here in Acrobat, 280 pages. You can also go to File, Properties, and on the Description tab, it tells you 280 pages. Also, at this point, I like to double check my page size. Now, you'll see that it says 5.13 by 8.25. This is actually 5.125. They just round up. This is 5 by 8 with 1/8 of an inch bleed around the outside edges. So if the book doesn't have a bleed, it'll say 5 by 8, but this one does have that bleed. All right, so we know 280 pages. We are going to enter 280 for the page count, and then the next option is paper color, and there's 3 options. There's white, cream, or color. We're not doing color printing for this, so it's definitely not color. I don't like cream paper. I know I'm a weirdo. A lot of people love cream paper. I prefer white, so I select white. Now, most of the people out there, they like cream. I don't know why. I like the crispness of the white. I like the way it feels. And I know a lot of people say it's easier to read on cream color paper, but I still prefer the white. And then what you're going to do is just download the cover template. And typically what I do, I already have one saved out, but what I do in that book file, you'll see that this is my series, this Maryville series. I have book 1, book 2, and book 3. So this is book 1, and then under book 1, I have a cover file, ebook file, interior file, marketing file, miscellaneous, and then stock images. This is the cover file, so we're going to save it under cover. Now, within the cover file, I have a folder called links, and then I have one called templates, so I'm saving it here. All right, now I've already done this, and I've already gone in and extracted the file. So all you have to do to extract the zip file is to right-click on it, extract all, and it saves it within that folder. All right, so KDP provides you with 2 options. They provide you with a PDF or they provide you with a PNG. It doesn't matter which you use. You can open both of them up in Photoshop. So it's really up to you. I typically will start with either one depending on my mood. But let's take a look at this template before we do anything. Let's get to know this template. First and foremost, you have a bright yellow box staring at you. It says barcode, location, and size. Now, this is where KDP is going to print the barcode. Now, with Ingram Spark, when you use their template, they will automatically put a barcode on there that you can move around to wherever you want. Now, you can also do this with KDP. You can create a barcode, but then you or your client will have to tell KDP not to generate a barcode. And that's a question that often gets missed. So I recommend letting KDP put the barcode on. And they're always going to put it in this location. So when you're designing the back cover, you need to accommodate blank space there for their barcode. Don't do it white. Don't have it white in the print file. You can draw a guide there that's white, so you know not to put anything in there, and then just hide that layer when you go to save the PDF to send. It's really up to you. How do you do it? I typically have a white box that I just hide when I go to print the final, when I go to save the final PDF. All right, so the next thing to look at is this orangey peachy area. Okay. This is the non-safe zone. Anything that is relevant to your cover does not need to be in this area. So no text should fall in this orange area because it has a chance of getting cut off. Okay. This outside dotted line, this is our trim line. And then these two lines in the middle, this is going to be our fold line. And then this white area is our spine. It tells you what the spine width is. This is our front cover, and then this is our back cover. All right, so anything that's white is our safe zone. So all your text and all your important graphic information should be there. The only thing that should be in this peach area is anything that's background related. Okay. All right. So now that we've taken a look at the template, what we're going to do is we're going to open it up in Photoshop. And let's see, I'm going to open up the PNG. We're going to tell it to open with Photoshop 2020. Sorry, I just recently upgraded and my file settings are not set properly to open up in the right program, so I need to do that. All right, so book one, cover, we're going to go template, and I'm just going to open up the PNG. Now, the first thing I do when I get this cover file is I build in my guidelines. Okay, now I did this in 6x9, so I'm going to have to make a lot of modifications. So you can decide to either place your template here, or you can decide that you want to move elements of this file onto the PNG. And that's what I'm going to do. So what I do is zoom in real tight, and I just start dragging some guidelines out, just so I'll have those guides. Now, you could always put your template up top, on top, and change the opacity of it and not worry about drawing the guidelines, but I typically prefer drawing the guidelines, so that's what I'm going to do. So I just draw a guide around every single trim line, every single fold line, and every single safe zone line. So this is what we're going to do, and a few more left, and then I have some at the bottom to do. And just down here, and there we go. All right, so now I have some guidelines everywhere. We're going to fit screen, and you'll see. Now, if we toggle, let's create. You'll see that all the guidelines stay there. Okay. All right, so we're going to say template, and I actually do want to lock this because I do not want to accidentally move it. And so we're just going to lock all the layers. Okay. All right, so here we go. And now what I've got to do is somehow get this into this template. It's not easy. You just have to think about, do you just want to try and drop this in or what? And that's the fun part, figuring out what the best way to do it is. And I'm just going to share with you how I do it. All right, so now what we got to do is figure out how to get my cover into this template. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to place the file. So I am taking this Unwrap My Heart Final 01 PSD and I am placing it within my template. All right, now it's going to be placed as a smart object. And I don't want it as a smart object. I actually want it as the layered file so I can manipulate it. As you see, it's way off. The dimensions are way off, but we're just going to hit enter and we're going to make this work. Okay, so now that we have this in there, what we're going to do is we're going to right click on the layer and say convert to layers. And so what it's going to do is it's going to take my original layers and create a layered file here. So that will allow us to move things around and manipulate things a lot easier than trying to move from this file to this file. So this takes a few minutes. And then it's actually going to resize it to the actual 6x9 size. So a lot of this is going to look cut off. Okay, so this is the true to size 6x9, but all my layers are saved. Okay. I'm actually going to delete this. I had made modifications to this file and didn't save it, cleaning up my layers. So I am going to delete this whole entire group and contents. Then I'm going to try it again. So what we're going to do, because I already saved the file now. And one of the things that, if you're fairly new to cover design, I recommend getting in the habit of naming your layers. It'll save you a lot of headache and a lot of trouble trying to find where things are at. I also recommend grouping them into folders. So you'll see here's one folder. It says ribbon back and it's got a couple of different things within that folder. And you'll see that's what's in that folder. It's actually a hue and saturation layer over the ribbon. When I turn that hue and saturation off, you'll see like the original color of the ribbon, and I just added some more of a green hue to it to brighten it. So that's layer one. Then ornament spine, that's my little ornament on the spine. Ornament back, that's my little ornament hanging here. My title on the spine is here. And you'll notice I have multiple layers and multiple folders in that title spine because there's a lot of different effects applied to it. Title back is the same thing, and then the title front. And when I built this, I actually started with the title on the front, then I duplicated it for both the title back and title spine, so I didn't have to change it. So I didn't have to redo it. All I did was just move some things around. And then front cover graphics, that's not a really accurate label. It's just I'm just going to call it the graphics. And so it's all the background And you'll see that this is pretty complex. We've got a lot of layers here with different, actually it can be cleaned up more because I've got a lot of layers that I did not use. We've got the ribbon on the front, which is the same thing as the ribbon on the back. So we'll hide and unhide that. Then we have this background with a mask applied. And this black area here is just a kind of a pretend shadow that I created underneath this little torn edge to give it a little bit more dimension. And then this is the color on the background with a mask applied. And then I have a whole bunch of things that I've done to this photo on the front. This particular character, he has dirty blonde hair, so I just added a brightness and contrast layer to his hair, which is all in this group right here. So I have that applied. And then I have a whole bunch of different things to be on. Color balance. Her hair was a little bit too green looking, and in the book she actually has auburn hair. But I didn't want to make it too auburn because I didn't want it to contrast with the red on the thing. And, you know, characters, although I do prefer them to look like it, they don't have to look exactly like it. And I just added that color balance just to take that green out and maybe add a little bit more red tone, more of that auburn tone. Hue and saturation again here. This is just on top of his head. You'll see all these have layer masks applied for it. And here's another for his hair. I was playing around and playing around and playing around trying to get his hair right. And then here is the image. Looks like I have it duplicated, so I don't really need it both places. Probably what I did is okay, I know what I did. We can actually delete this one out because this one has a smart filter applied to it. It was actually the same. I probably just duplicated it and then rasterized it. It's not necessarily wrong to do that, but the point is you want to keep your layers clean and meaningful, because there may be a time where you have hundreds of layers. I know it sounds crazy, but yes, it's possible. So the easier you label things, if you take the time to label things, you won't have to question what in the world is that. And sometimes you may have a blank layer that you have no idea what it is, and then you delete it, and then come to find out there's something on it. So take the time to label them. So this is going to be our shadow back. Of course, can't type. And then this is our shadow front. Whoops. Shadow front. And this is our tree paper. And then this is our back color. All right, and then we've got a couple. All right, so I'm going to save this again now that I have all the layers named properly. And we are going to go back to our template, and we're going to paste this once this is done saving. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close out our cover base because we do not need that. Dum-da-dum-da-dum. All right, so it's at 99, so it's about done. And that's the negative thing sometimes when you have a file with a bunch of layers. It can be slow and overly large, but if you have a strong enough computer, that's what it's for. All right, so we're going to place this. So we're going to do that again, placed, linked, and I'm going to find it and place it. All right, so now that it's placed, and then we're going to go back and convert to layers. All right, so now We need to figure out the best way to fit this cover within our template. Okay, so I am going to work on it piece by piece. Okay, I'm actually going to turn off all of the layers but the background. All right, so we know we can actually try to get this a better size. All right, so we know that we can just kind of move it around. We know that this right here, this photo, extends to this line because this is the edge of our front cover. So I'm gonna place it there first. Okay. We probably need to make it a little bit smaller, but we want it. We don't want any of the orange, so we've got some black here. It's not all the way at the bottom, so we're going to make it a little bit bigger, just a hair, and that should do it. All right, so now we're just going to kind of move things around, and we're probably going to have to remask some of our things, and that's okay. So we know we want this on that line right there. Okay. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to break this down. The couple, we could probably go in and make this a little bit bigger, smaller. But let's go ahead and turn on our graphics for the title because we know, whoops, that's the only bad thing about working in layers sometimes. I prefer to just go to free transform and move things around that way. So we know that we want unwrap to be the full width of the front cover between the safe zone. All right, so that'll be a good guide. And we know we want the author names to be in the safe zone as well. So in this position, everything looks centered and everything is within our safe zone. Okay, so we should be good with the title here. All right, so now let's go back to our couple. And because I have this all in a group, I'm just going to free transform it and see if we can maybe fit more of him. And, you know, you just do it to what you think looks good. And in some cases, I may go back and look at my original and see how it was. All right, so I'm just going to pull up the old one because we have already used this in some marketing materials. And I want it to look exactly the same. All right, so his head is getting cut off just barely. And this is the actual size, so this one doesn't include bleeds. So I think that's exactly where he's going to be at, and I'm going to pay attention to where his watch is at. His watch is actually near the unwrap, so we're actually going to make this a little bigger. And we're going to move, let's see where his watch was, right above the W. And how much space did we have up top? All right, so he can be a little bit bigger. They can be a little bit bigger. And it's not going to be exact because the dimensions are a little different, but you know, just play around with it until it looks nice. And there we have it, okay? Okay, now that we got our couple set, I think we've got everything set on the front cover. We don't have to move anything around. Actually, we do not. We are going to take our background and move it over because it needs, I placed it on the wrong line. It needs to be on this line and not that first line, because this is where it's going to get folded. Okay. All right. So now what we do next, just check everything. We may want to bring the ribbon up here down a little bit, just a hair. So I'm going to select that layer and just slide it down. And okay, so I'm pretty happy with our front cover. Now, we do need to mask some of this ribbon off. This ribbon only goes over the spine. It does not go into the back cover. So we're going to mask part of that ribbon out. So we're just going to go do Edit, Fill, and make sure you're on your mask layer, which we are, and it's going to block some of that out. Okay. Now, the same goes with our spine. We want to, hold on. We want to click on our mask layer for the spine, and then I am just going to go down and select it. And we are going to do Edit, Fill, Black. Whoops. Edit. Make sure you're on the mask layer. Edit, Fill. We actually want this to be white, maybe? Is that what I screwed up? Nope. Edit, Fill, Black. I know what's wrong. We want it to be black because we want it to go away. Now, look, what happened here? Well, we have to look at our back color cover, and we need to move it over. That's why. All right, so that fits, that fits. Now, the only thing that doesn't fit right now is this doesn't have that little torn edge. So we are going to do our little brush that I did to create that torn edge just on that little area. So let's go and turn it. We want the, oops, edit, undo. We're going to zoom down so we can actually see the brush. We need to turn it this way, just a hair. And we actually just need to really get that one little area. So we can actually make this much smaller until you get it just right. And then we are painting with black, so that goes away. All right, then the other thing I need to do is I just need to go in and fill in a little bit of black onto our shadow. So I'm just going to do just a somewhat brush. Actually, I'm painting with red. I don't want to paint with red. We're going to paint with black. Let's see. Okay. So we're going to go back to our brush, and I'm just going to add in just a little bit more of that shadow there. All right, so there we go. All right, so the background and everything should be set. Now we are just going to look at the back cover title. And let's go ahead and turn in that ribbon back, because these are ones that we're really going to need to adjust. And we can actually look at the full spread. And this is what it looked like before I changed the size. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to get my title. So title back, we're going to do Edit, Free Transform. And we're just going to move this into position. We're going to make it a little bit smaller. And that should do it. I did didn't hit enter when I moved it, so that's the reason why it didn't stay. All right, so we're going to hit enter. And then we're going to go ahead and turn on that ornament on the back. And then we're going to play around with the size. We know we can make the ornament a little bit smaller. Going to bring that down. Let's see, make sure the end of the rope, put it right there. And then let's go ahead and get this ribbon back. Edit free transform. And it is huge, obviously. You just never know what I have in here. All right, so we're going to make it much smaller. And look at how we placed it before. Edit free transform. All right. All right, so just play around with it until you get it placed right. Now we have to go in and we have to correct our mask. So we know it needs to bleed until that spine. So I often will zoom in. Don't have it exactly right, but there we go. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to edit. We're going to fill it, make sure we're on that mask, and we're going to fill it with white to bring what's hidden. And there we go. All right. Now we can move our little ribbon down. I mean our little ornament. And we're going to do that here. And then we'll make the title a little bit better in a minute. So we're going to bring up the ornament on the spine and resize it to fit. You want everything to be between the inner blue lines. Okay. So I'm just going to center it based on those. All right, that should do it. Okay, now it is a little off, but that's okay. You could actually, if we wanted to center it more based on this, we could do that. And I just do this visually. We can make it a little bit smaller so that ribbon is off the edge. This is a graphic. It doesn't really matter. It's okay if it goes over to the back. All right, so that looks pretty good. All right, now we're going to worry about the back cover again. We're going to worry about the title. We actually want to make this a little smaller. So we're just going to select them all and we're just going to tweak the size. And there we go. I think that's good. Try to get it as closely as possible as I had it, so that looks pretty good. Oh, no, I didn't. See, I keep on making a mistake because I'm not hitting enter before I go to the other one. All right, so now we go. All right, so there is the title for the back. And in some cases, when I have like an outer glow around things, you'll see this title is just made up of a billion different things that I played around with forever to get exactly what I wanted. But all right, so in this case, my outer glow is the same outer glow that was on the front cover, which was fine for the front cover, but on the back it looked a little bit big. So we're just going to tweak it a little bit just so it works for this, and that looks good. And then the back cover is set. Now we're going to work on the spine. And we're going to do this in parts because we want the author names to be smaller and place them to the very edge. And see, there I go again. It's going to be screwed up again because I did not do it properly. All right, so edit, free transform. And so now that's center. That's pretty good. I don't think we can actually, we have room to make it a little bit bigger. So we are going to do that. Okay. All right. And then the next part is everything else. And what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to move the authors out of this layer because I'm just going to, come on, drop it out of this one because now I want to just select all of my title spines since we've already got the authors selected properly. We are going to edit free transform. Nope. I must have moved my heart out as well. All right. There we go. All right, so now I should be able to move it. So we are going to zoom in and we're just going to size this. And just do it visually is the way I do it. You may have a better method. I typically have a really good eye for these things because I've been doing this for so long that I will just play around with it until it fits. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get this P. So I'm going to have the top of the U close to that line and the bottom of the P on this other line. So we have some work to do. And that should do it, actually. That should be pretty close. And then I'm going to move it up. And move it, center it a little bit more. And I may choose to move my heart because it does not look centered anymore. So what we're going to do is title spine. My heart, I think, is a couple of, it's actually just one. When I did this, this was multiple layers upon layers of just playing around. So when I tell you to name your layers properly, name them as you're doing them so you'll know what the crap you're doing when you try to go back and adjust it. Otherwise, you fumble around like me. All right, so we're going to correct that outer glow like we did on the back cover. We're going to make it 12 and 8, so it is not as wide. And there we go. All right, so now this is our cover, and it is set to that 5x8. And I'm one of those weirdos that likes to use InDesign, so I am going to save this in my links folder. I'm going to call it Unwrap My Heart Final 02 because this is set to 5x8. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at the image size. And the image size is 1088 by 8.25. Okay. Now, the reason why I'm doing that is because I do my back cover text in InDesign. I'm one of those weirdos. I love the text controls in InDesign are so much better than the text controls in Photoshop. Okay, so we are going to open up the file I already have created for the cover. So this is one that I had done originally, and first thing we're going to do, it'll say, I'm not going to update links because we're going to link it anyway. So when it opens, my computer usually isn't this slow, and always when you're trying to show people how to do things, it never goes right? All right, so this is the file in InDesign. It looks a little dotty, it looks poor quality. That's only because the view display performance is set to typical and not high quality, so if you want it to look good, just select it there. But what we need to do is we actually need to change the document size, and we're going to change it to that 10.88 by 8.25. Don't worry about adjusting it. Don't worry about the margins. We do not want a bleed. And then we're going to click on OK. And we're actually just going to delete that. And we are going to place that, oops, wrong one, place that cover file that we just saved in Photoshop, so which is that Unwrap My Heart Final 02. And we are going to place it right here. Now, that placed itself on top of all my text. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add another layer. I'm going to call it background. And I am going to move that to the back and I'm going to lock it. Okay. So now I set this up and you'll see my text boxes are all wrong. So what we're going to do, this is our barcode, and it's actually, it adjusted to the wrong size. So we're going to say 2.1 by 1, because I believe that's what our template was. We'll need to verify that, but it doesn't matter. We just know that we don't need any text down here. So what I typically like to do, since I already had this text set up, I'll typically select it and I'll just transform it and change the scale to maybe like 90%. And hopefully that will get me pretty close to where it was. And then what I like to do is don't pay attention to this line right here. Actually, we can use that as a guide. That's going to be our that was, I think the margins were set. I'm just looking at this. All right, so our margins were 1/4 of an inch. So that is going to be our bleed. And we are just going to extend this box all the way to the spine. So now this is going to be centered. We had that particular line down. And then the same with this box. We are going to center that along our spine. And we're probably going to have to do some adjusting in size. This is why I prefer using InDesign, because this text box here, InDesign allows you to build inset spacing within a text box, which is great. So I'm going to adjust it just to get my text to fit a little bit better. So I adjusted those outside edges. And then I'm actually going to make, I don't think I set up styles in this one. No, bad me. I didn't set up styles. So I'm actually going to make this main font. It's right now set for 11.5. I'm going to just make it to 11.2. And it is set for 15.3, and I'm going to set it for 15. Now, if you paid attention to my InDesign tutorials on interior formatting, you know that I lay things out on a grid. For this back cover, we don't have to worry about text on the opposite page, so we don't need to worry about the grid for this, so definitely do not set it up as a grid. But oftentimes what I do is I will import my paragraph styles, especially with drop caps and special formatting like that. I will import those so we can load paragraph styles from our interior document, and that way I know that the styles are going to be very similar. So that's one thing to do. This one I already had set up, so I'm not going to worry about that. We are going to take this down to maybe 14.5 just to make this stuff fit a little bit better. 14.5. And we need to adjust, these are graphics, and this is just by site. All right, and I think, let's see, we want, just going to center this here. Now before I had it where it was centered around the bottom, but it's just not going to work at this size. So we need to clear out that right margin. All right, so now there we go. All right, I'm going to make this one actually much smaller. This was actually going to be about a 9 by 12. Okay, So there we have it. We have now set this cover up. We resized it from a 6x9 down to the 5x8. Remember, we don't need this anymore. I like to keep it there for visual reference. So what I have done is I have moved that to its own layer. I'm going to call it barcode, and I am going to set it to a non-print layer. So you just decheck the print layer box, okay? So visually, when you're viewing it, it is still going to stay there, but when you view it in print mode, it's going to go away. Okay, and so now KDP will be able to place this box wherever they want in this little area right here. And we know they have room for it. All right, so we're going to save this, and then we are going to export it. And they typically request the X1A, but for covers, I typically do a press quality because sometimes there are some supposed to be non-printing lines, especially when there's transparency involved, and that I've had them print before and they're not supposed to print, so I typically will use press quality. It has not been declined yet, but we're just going to see. This is Unwrap My Heart cover final 01. We're just going to see how it looks when it generates the PDF. Okay, so there's nothing special we need to do. There's no bleed on this. It's already built in, so we don't have to worry about that. And then we'll wait for the PDF to pop up. All right, so I just like to zoom in and make sure, yeah, see, some of the shadows don't look all that great when you zoom in. It's probably going to be okay, but I am going to export it as a press quality as well. So if we can see if it does look a little bit better. All right, now the template for Ingram Spark is a little different than the template for KDP. And I'm going to quickly show you. I don't have any set up personally, but I am going to show you what a client's file looks like. Cover. All right, so this is a template, what a template looks like. I'm going to hide all the layers so you can see what it looks like. All right, so this is what the template looks like for Ingram Spark. Quickly hide all this mess. You can kind of see. Yeah, layers in InDesign are not as friendly. All right, so this is what their template looks like. And it looks like I have things all screwed up. Actually, you know what? Let's look at it in another way. We are going to go look at it this way. I'm going to look at it, the base template that I downloaded when they sent me. Ingram Spark, they're going to email you the template, and it's usually pretty instant. You can, of course, you can have them send you a PDF, or you can have them send you. What I do is I have them send me a InDesign file. And I'm going to show you what it looks like here. Open. I have another monitor that I'm going on. You're probably rolling your eyes at me right now, I know. All right, so we are going, hopefully I can edit all this ridiculousness out. All right, so here is a template. This is a paperback template. And of course, I didn't save the wrong one. Open. All right, so this is a paperback template for Ingram Spark. It says lightning source, but they're one and the same. This is the content type. This is a premium color, white paper, 54 pages, and I requested InDesign. You can also request a PDF. And this is an 8.5 by 8.5 because I believe this was a children's book. And you'll see that they provide a barcode for you so you can place it within the safe zone. And you'll notice that their safe zone is pink. So if we zoom in and look at the spine is really narrow, and I would not put text on this spine because it would need to be like 4 points, and we do not want that. So if your book is not very big, so this is 54 pages, we do not get to put spine text. It's typically, Ingram Spark lets you get away with it if it's like 70 pages or more, and KDP will tell you it needs to be 100 or more pages. All right, so the blue area is the same thing as the non-safe zone, and you'll see that they've got guidelines here. These are the trim marks. This is where they're going to take it and put all those printed covers in a trimmer, and it's going to get trimmed down to these cut lines. So that's your bleed that's going to get cut off, and then this is the area that you have to accommodate for that bleed shift. Okay. So this is an Ingram Spark template. It prints on a larger sheet of paper and has a bunch of other information that you need. So that's the biggest difference from the templates. Now, you do not have to extend your artwork. You do not extend your artwork beyond this blue box, okay? You keep within your box. So in this particular case, what I typically do is I will just, create the Photoshop template, and I'll place the full background here, and then I'll go in and add the text boxes just like we did with the KDP template. All right, hope that makes sense. Now I am done with all this, and all I have to do is upload my print files. We'll talk to you later.